with that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly. This little spiral bound book.
Oh yeah. I took it over to home Office Depot. If I'd been smart, I would have printed
Do
it
you have
out.
all your pages?
Huh?
Do you have all your pages?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have them just in the file?
No, I printed it myself. And then after it was already print, I just said to print and walked out. I didn't realize it was single-sided, so.
Yes, it's green.
Green.
It's funny.
Sheila, are we good? All right.
If you,
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's 6:01, and I will call this meeting of the Copper Canyon Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's Monday, January 13th. The first thing we have on our agenda, well, first, before we go forward, I want to tell you that you have the most educated Planning and Zoning Commission this town has ever had. You have 4 people up here that spent 2 days in class this last week with this big fat book and all these slides. And the first day of the class was taught by our former town council, Terry Welsh. The second day by his partner, Robert Brown. So at least 4 of us here are so educated, you just wouldn't believe it.
or at least we know where to go.
At least. Yeah. And I will also say that a little education can be a dangerous thing, which you may see later in this meeting. All right. So the first thing is we have public input. Citizens can make comments to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We ask citizens who wish to speak on agenda items to sign on to the sheet provided at the table at the rear of the room. There is a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. Pursuant to state open meeting laws, the Planning and Zoning Commission cannot discuss or take action on items not posted on the agenda. Does anyone wish to make a public comment at this time? We will have the public hearing later. All right, good. So no public input? Well, are you going to speak on a general comment or on the specific agenda item later in the meeting?
Specific agenda item later on the meeting.
Okay, yeah, so you don't need to, you do need to fill out the form, but we'll do that in the public hearing. So our first item then is a development update from town staff.
Yes. So just real quick, we have a couple things. The Knolls, they're well underway, starting to pour the streets. They're about 50% done with that. They've got a lot of the utilities in, so they're making progress there. Jernigan Estates, they've got the streets, all the utilities poured. So that's just almost complete. We're still working on the final acceptance, so they got a couple things to knock out before we'll do that. The Ani Ranch, I think we spoke about that last time. They are submitting to be presented to council in February is what their goal is. So we may see some that come to the commission in February. So that one's coming soon. It's 22 lots as well. So that is the quick updates. I've got one more thing. I'm sorry. You guys may or may not know phase 3 of Copper Creek that's located in the county. The county has approved that as a final plat. Part of the drainage for that development will come through Copper Canyon in underground, and that permit has been issued as well. And they're looking to start that work sometime in February, is what we understand. So I just wanted to give you those updates.
Thank you, Troy. Item number 4 is the consent agenda, which is to approve the October 21st, 2024 minutes of this commission meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. All right, so now I'm going to take a little bit of a deviation here. Normally we have the public hearing and then we go to the action items. As you've seen at some of my prior meetings, I find that kind of weird that, the public has the first comment before they even hear what the item is. So it seems to me to make more sense for us to bring the action forward, the item forward, to have some discussion, to talk with staff, engineers, whatever, then table it, then go to the public hearing, hear what the public has to say, and then we can bring the action item back up after the public hearing. So I think that's a better way to do it. It's more clear. It provides more accountability and transparency to the process.
And Commissioner, just note, Chris is on his way. He's running a few minutes late, the town engineer.
All right. Well, we will survive somehow up for a while. We've got his written opinion anyway. Just to kind of give you guys the benefit of what we heard in class, which you may have heard before, that Texas law 2.12.005 requires that a subplat submitted by a developer of a subdivision to the municipal, it must be approved by the municipal authority. It is required to be approved by the municipal authority if it meets the requirements of the town's subdivision ordinances. So the town staff, including the town engineer, reviews the plat upon submittal and determines whether the plat meets the town requirements. If it is deficient in some way, the staff will inform the developer and request the developer to refile a corrected plat. When the plat has been determined by staff to meet the town's requirement, then the plat will come to this P&Z commission for approval. Although such approval cannot be withheld if the committee determines or the commission determines that the plat meets the town's requirements. So a key step in this whole process is obviously the work of the town staff, engineer and secretary, administration, in reviewing the plat and providing us with additional information, whatever we need to know that they have done their job right. So a large portion of our job up here is making sure the staff has done their job right, rather than us using a whole lot of independent judgment on it. Because by the time it gets here, it doesn't get to us unless the staff has said it's good to go, right? So we're really more doing a digging job into what the staff has done than we are digging into the project itself. I hope that's clear to everybody. So what we'll do here at this meeting is we'll talk to the staff, we'll quiz the staff and the engineer. We'll look at it ourselves. We do study the plats ourselves to make sure that what the town is telling us is consistent with what we understand as commissioners. So we may call the developer up to the podium to give us more detail on something. If there's something that we would like more clarity on that perhaps is kind of shortly, it's kind of abbreviated in what the staff reports to us. But we get a checklist from the staff on everything they've looked at. And we get a letter from our engineer that says it meets the engineering standards. So a large part of the process has already taken place long before it gets to us here. So the agenda item for tonight, if you'll go to tab item, which now says action and discussion item 6, discuss, consider, and make a recommendation to the town council regarding Quarter Horse Estates preliminary plat, allowing for the development of approximately 9.6 acres and to allow for the development of 4 single-family lots located at 399 Woodland Drive, Copper Canyon, Texas, 75077. For those of you who don't know, that's just right almost across the street here on the corner of Woodland and Chinchapel. So at this point, we would like to talk with the staff about their opinions. Good timing, right on time. So we have the checklist in our books here?
Yes, we do.
We do. What tab's on?
It's back there behind the blue.
Yes, okay, there it is. It's the green tab.
Over here.
Yes, okay. So there is a specific checklist for preliminary plats, just as there's a specific checklist for final plats that our staff and our engineer goes through. And we have these in our books. We had them last week, in fact. Had a chance to review them online. Things look to be checked appropriately. Does anybody on the commission have any questions regarding the check marks? Is there anything?
I want to double check something. We've asked this before, but so Chris, if I understand correctly, the developer submits the checklist to you with the checks already done, right? So just to confirm, have you looked at those and you're comfortable with what they've said is applicable, yes or no?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we need to adjust this form because item number 1 makes absolutely no sense. This is a preliminary plat checklist. There's no reason why we would need 10 sets of final plats submitted to the town in advance of a preliminary. So that is, I think that's intended to be 10 copies of the preliminary plat, not the final plat. You see what I'm talking about there? Okay, that's just a typo in the folder. The other, one of the other big issues here in town is as we've heard before, is drainage. And so one of the steps in the preliminary plat process is an assessment of the downstream drainage. And we have a letter here from, well, first of all, the developer's engineer submits the hydrology report to our engineer. And it's CCM, is it?
Yeah.
CCM is the engineering firm. And it's quite a detailed report. It's like 55 pages, including the soil sample report. So that engineer certifies that report. So that engineer is putting their license and their professional reputation online by certifying that report. Then our town engineer also reviews it and comes up with sometimes questions or suggestions for improving it. In this case, we have the letter submitted by our town engineer that lists 5 or 6 minor changes, none of which, in our town's engineer's opinion, affects the ultimate approval of the preliminary plat. Mitch, can you read the last sentence there in his memo, please?
Please let me know if you have any questions. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. So basically, we've reviewed submitted downstream assessment I think I'm on the right one, right?
Yeah.
Downstream assessment. We have reviewed the submitted downstream assessment for the referenced residential development for compliance with the Town of Copper Canyon subdivision ordinance. Following comments pertain, and then there are 6 sentences on here. And it's just clarifying basically what different components of the engineering study are.
Do you have any comments on it, Chris? Anything you'd like to add to your letter?
So one of the things to be aware of and to be conscious of, this is a small development serving the 4 lots, and they're adjacent to a floodplain. And so because of that, and because of the way you can look at drainage, the reason they don't have on-site detention is because that whole system is related to time and how all this water gets into there. And so because of their proximity and because of where the floodplain is, where they are on that downstream piece, it actually works to an advantage to the town that they get their water into that system quicker and get it out of town before more water hits the system. And so the purpose of that downstream assessment was to evaluate that and say, is this right or not?
Does it work?
And so we agree with 95% of what they've done. And a couple of things we want clarification on. I don't see them affecting the plat. It's not going to change lines. So from a preliminary plat aspect, I think that it's good. And then if we're not satisfied before it goes to final plat, then we'll hold up the process.
So the comments that he made need to be cleared up before the final plat comes to us.
Yeah.
So that they are not required at this time for the preliminary plat. Is that, the CCM report, is that publicly available for people to come in and look at if they want?
Absolutely.
So anyone who has any questions about the hydrology, drainage, culverts, box culverts, any of that stuff, or the soil, please check with Sheila because it's available here for you to review.
So I have a question for
Yeah.
Chris. It says the detention pond waiver is being requested. And if that is granted, can that be retracted if something comes up later?
Yeah, so if what they've done at the preliminary plat stage, if it comes to a point where they can't effectively address those questions that we have, we would deny the plat because it doesn't meet the engineering standards and final construction plans that are required for the platting process. So if that happens, if it's a small move in a line or something, then we continue moving forward. If it's, they got to give up a lot for a drainage pond or they have to do something, then it'll take them back to this step. And so and they're aware that's at their risk to move forward with this stage without the final assessment of those comments.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
So other questions for our staff? Okay, in that case, I think we will move on to the public hearing portion. And so let me read a little speech here for you. Please be advised that the preliminary plat for this agenda item has been determined by the town's staff and engineer to meet the town's requirements. And as have you heard, the P&Z committee has made its efforts, commission has made its best efforts to confirm that the staff and engineer diligently examine the preliminary plat for determination that it meets the town's requirements for such preliminary plat. And we have personally satisfied ourselves as commissioners that the requirements have been met. So also please be advised that Texas State Law 2.12-.005 provides that the plat must be approved if it meets the town's requirements. Therefore, the purpose of the public hearing is for the town citizens to be informed regarding the development of activities in the town, to express any personal comments regarding the agenda item, and to present any facts or documents that may be contradictory or supplemental to the information provided on the preliminary plat as submitted by the owner developer. The committee is not required to respond to public comments. However, the commission may choose to respond directly to any public comments or to ask the developer to respond to any public comments, either contemporaneously or subsequent to the closing of the public hearing. The commission will listen attentively to all public comments, but in the absence of any new facts that might be presented, the committee will have no option other than to approve the preliminary plat as submitted. Although in rare situations, the commission may choose to approve a plat subject to certain conditions that could require the owner developer to provide a written response. Such response would be reviewed by the commission at a subsequent meeting to be held within 15 days of the receipt of the written response from the property owner or developer. So it's now 6:17 p.m. I will call the public hearing to order. I don't have any pieces of paper, but we have someone who wanted to fill out a piece of paper. So if you could, thank you, I'll take it. If you could step to the podium and give us your name and address.
Greetings, I'm Mike Rochelle, representing my wife Arlene and I. We live where we don't live yet. We live in Highland Village, but we own the property right next to the property that is in discussion.
That's to the west of it?
It's 401/5 because we don't have an address yet.
Okay.
But it's that lot right across the street. We have a couple of things that are concerning. We brought these up at the last hearing. We have not been briefed. Now these were things that the mayor who ran the last meeting that we attended, it was another public hearing about this project. The mayor and the staff advised our neighbors to have conversations with us regarding drainage and fencing, lighting, and the placement of the homes in the project. The biggest issue for me is drainage, because if the drainage is moved from their property into our property in a way that's disadvantageous, we would like to be able to block that, to be honest, right? I have not seen it, so I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. So what I would request is that we have something in writing to us as neighbors that say what it is that the plans are for those things, that we're able to talk about an agreement on fencing in writing, that we have an agreement on lighting in writing, and that we have some say on the fence aesthetics. Those are the highlighted items that we brought up at the last meeting. We have not had a conversation. We got a notice, just like everybody else did in the mail, that this was happening, that's it. But if there's anything that you'd like to ask me regarding anything that I said, I'd be happy to answer it.
Any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, but I will say that, as you heard earlier, that all the hydrology is on file. There's a very extensive report that you can check with us. So if you can get all of that drainage question, ought to be able to resolve very quickly.
Yeah, but the mayor said, it'd be a great neighborly thing to go ahead and do that.
Sure. Any other public comments? Public hearing, for the public hearing. No questions for the developer. Any questions from us to the developer or the property owner? No?
Wait, no, I do.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, you got to. Go ahead.
So in addressing that particular issue, you said the floodplain was behind the property?
Kind of to the north.
Okay, so I'm wondering, how do we determine like what is acceptable for the neighbors? Because I mean, you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens. And so how will the neighbors be able to then say this is too much? Or, I don't know what to do with this, or whatever happens as this is being developed? How does that get addressed?
Okay. Do you want me to address that, or do you want the?
Well, whoever knows.
Specifically the hydrology, yes.
Okay, so the way that this was looked at is right now you've got a piece of property that is essentially ranch land. And so all the water that leaves the property leaves it at about 2 to 3 locations. And so their analysis came back and looked at those locations. They looked at the key to design storms, so the 10-year, 25, 50, and 100, and compared the existing versus proposed at each one of those stages to make sure that they didn't do a negative impact at each stage individually. And so in terms of real world assessment, if one of the property owners, if their design has all the water going this way and someone pulls their permit and completely changes it and sends it a different way, that will be, potential impact. And that'll be on the next step of that process to make sure that whoever pulls the permits, who ends up developing it, will have to follow the guidelines that were set as part of this whole process.
And is fencing taken into consideration when you're looking at the land, because then it becomes dammed, right? So as the water right now, it does what it does because it's open and it can free flow. Once the fence comes up, it becomes dammed with debris, leaves, grass, whatever. And so that's going to change the course of the water. Is that
right? So no, they won't do that.
right? So when that happens, because a fence will be put up, right? And then the water will dam and do whatever it's going to do to find its way. How is that addressed once we understand what the repercussion is now of fencing going up and the water is being redirected and how neighbors are affected by that?
So I guess the answer is first, that's a maintenance issue, meaning that the town will approve a fence that obstructs the water, that has a
It
negative.
will, you said?
Will not.
Will
Will
not.
not, okay.
And so let's say they put, a chain link or a fence that would inherently catch debris as it goes through. Well, that's because you guys aren't doing it HOA. No. So that would be on the individual property owner to come out and maintain that if it is a spot. But
If
because
the property owner
is-
changes the fence, because the original fence
Yes.
will allow the water to flow through.
Correct. Correct. So that'd all be on the property owner. And then if it does become a issue, well, then they would call the town, whoever that downstream impact person was, call the town, and then our enforcement officer would get out there and make them do what they have to do.
Okay.
Did you want to make another comment?
Yes, sir, thank you. So just so you understand, I'm a project manager by training, right? And so I'm always thinking about what the possible risk is. So from my perspective, as the owner of the property next door, right now, there is no water that comes from your property to our property, right? It goes down through the place that you're going to put your pond, and it goes down into the creek, and everything's good. However, that part of the property is low and if it's filled, then there would be needed to be a retaining wall to hold that land. And then the water could be coming into our property and create another escape, right? Whether that's good for us or not, I don't know. So anyway, I'm just looking for a way to know that that's not going to happen, or that if it does happen, that I have something to say about it.
The plat does show that it is not going to be filled.
It is not going to be.
That's there's no change to the grade.
The preliminary plat. shows that.
Preliminary
Right.
plat, obviously, the final plat will have to be evaluated separately. Other questions?
I'm done.
You sure? You sure?
Sure.
All right. It's,
I've got a quick question for the developer. As far as lighting goes, what type of, y'all are not doing any street lighting or anything like that? Is that correct?
My name is Louis, or do you want me to step in the podium?
Sure.
Sure. My name is Luis. I'm here with my business partners, Michael and Noel. We want to take the path of least resistance when it comes to the construction. So whatever the city council approves and doesn't disturb our neighbors, that's the route that we're going to go with lighting. We want to be modern. At the same time, we're doing a universal design. So we expect that a lot of people that are going to live in the properties that we're going to build, are going to want some lighting, for them to walk around the backyard. But whatever you guys agree when it comes to lighting and whatever doesn't affect anybody else, that's the route we're going to go.
Yeah, so,
Specifically street lighting. I
yeah,
was-
that's
Oh,
right.
street lighting.
That's-
No
I don't think
street
there is, right?
No,
I mean, it's, yeah.
Just whatever the houses there have for
Right.
their backyards
right.
or front yards.
Yeah, so generally speaking, the city does not require streetlights to be put up. We like natural light. And I think that's the biggest concern is if you have big overhead lights.
No.
That we don't put up any lights or?
No, they're not wanting any lights.
Not wanting streetlights.
Yeah,
Historically,
streetlights.
we've been very protective of the ability to walk out your backyard and actually see the stars.
There's a lot of copperheads around here.
Yeah, that's why you wear shoes. But I think that's where the committee's headed, is an understanding that you'll be fine if you have a street light. If you decide to put giant sodium lights that blind your neighbors, that will be a problem.
We don't require that, so
Right.
we don't expect it unless you make an exception and put it on your plats in the future.
And then as far as fencing around the perimeter, what type of fencing are y'all looking at proposing?
I think one of the benefits of Copper Canyon is the nature, is this, the views. So we haven't discussed it fully, but I think something that allows to see, beautiful trees, see, the creek and everything else. So I'm just guessing, right, just to answer your question, but I know as we get closer, we do like maybe iron rod so you can see through it, but nothing like that's going to prevent a view. I think it's going to be aesthetically nice, aesthetically pleasing. What fence would you guys recommend?
It's aesthetics, so long as it doesn't block up the water. It's aesthetics.
The most important person to ask that question of is this gentleman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and of course.
But we have 4 lots for sale. You're welcome to. No, but we'll make sure. I'll give you my number at the end of the meeting.
Make sure, because like the mayor said last time, let's talk. And, we talked about like placement of the house, that it was really close to the property line. And you said, oh, that's not decided, is it? But we haven't heard anything. Now everything's being, approved. So we'd love to have a conversation and not have it be niceties here and then never hear anything.
At the end of the meeting, I'll share my contact information, but I think the benefit of my business partners living right there, you can actually go knock on their door if you have any additional questions.
Yeah, we'd love to have a conversation like the mayor said.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll share our contact information, but they do live right next door. I know a lot of people have gone and fed the horses, so they're very friendly.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Troy, any other questions? In that case, I would like to close the public hearing at 6:28 PM. And we will now move to item number 6, or actually in this case, it'll now be 7, which is an action on the agenda item. Pass these down.
Yeah, thank you.
To be more clear, kind of make the minutes more complete, I would like to be more precise in our resolutions and just say, hey, we recommend the town approve it, great, move on. So I've drafted up a form of a resolution, which I will read. It says, whereas the town of Copper Canyon, the town has been asked to consider for approval a preliminary plat, the plat for the following project: Quarter Horse Estates, allowing for the development of approximately 9.6 acres and to allow for the development of 4 single-family lots located at 399 Woodland Drive, Copper Canyon, Texas, 75077. And whereas the town's administrative staff and engineering advisors, collectively this staff, have reported to the town's Planning and Zoning Commission, the commission, that the plat as submitted does meet all of the town's requirements for a preliminary plat. That's the staff's report. And whereas the commission has reviewed the plat, discussed the staff report with the staff, listened to the public at a public hearing, and after due consideration and evaluation, determined that the plat does meet all of the town's requirements for a preliminary plat. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the commission recommends to the town council of Copper Canyon that the plat be approved as presented. hopefully that pulls everything together into one place that makes it clear what the process was. Does anyone have any comments on the resolution as presented? Want to make any changes or corrections?
No, I like it. I think this is great. Yeah, I think it's very clear.
In that case, the chair will entertain a
Well,
motion.
so before we make a motion, so let's just make sure everybody's okay that if there are any other considerations or questions regarding the plat before we make a motion on it.
Yeah,
So,
because we can have discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
So that, anyway, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a motion seconded, then we can have discussion about
Fair enough.
it, right? So
Sure.
I would like to entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as
Thank
presented.
you. A second?
I'll second.
Jeff, second. All right. So now we will have discussion about the motion. Are there any comments or questions about the resolution as it stands or the project in general?
No, I mean,
No, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any. I think the checklist is very thorough. It was very clear, kind of what's been looked at, what's not applicable to it. So I appreciate that. Again, the hydrology report, I think, would be helpful for you just to understand that based on the plan, how the water's going to shed off the property, because it should give you a good sense of what that will look like. So I think that will be helpful for everybody to, to be able to understand how that's going to flow. Again, based on the preliminary plat, if things get changed when we get to the final, then we'll deal with everything again when we get to that. But I think everything is pretty organized for this.
Dane, any comments?
No, that's great.
The primary comment is, it's already been said, communication with the homeowners around is paramount. Nobody likes to show up one day and see something they're not prepared for. So take the time, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to share a number and talk to the other homeowners. It prevents a lot of angst and a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth later. So I appreciate that.
May I say something?
Okay.
I'm Michael Kifer. I'm the owner over here. And Mike, you have my number. I have yours. And we've seen y'all pull down our driveway a couple of times. So communication can also, anytime you have a question, you're more than welcome to text me or call me, because you've texted me and called me on other things in the past, and we both have had a good relationship. So, I mean, we're here to help, but I mean, at the same time, you can't just say, well, they're not communicating with us because you've pulled down our driveway a couple of times, looked, turned around and left. And so we just want to make sure that, we're kind of on the same page, that anytime you have a question or concern, you're more than welcome to call me, text me. You're going to get Lewis's information after this and
I'm always in your court, buddy. After the last meeting.
Thank you.
That's what, we didn't know what the
Yeah,
process
appreciate
was. We didn't know what the process was. We didn't know what the timing was on the plans and everything. So when the mayor said, talk to your neighbors to make sure that you're in you're like, oh yeah, we'll talk. But we're not gonna reach out and say, hey, we want to talk. You guys are the ones that are bringing the project in,
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is not the proper time for this.
Right.
You guys may discuss this offline. This is not part of our consideration. So I'd like to move the motion at this time. Go to a vote. All in favor of the resolution as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. The resolution is approved. So there is room here for an executive session, not having a lawyer present or one that we want to rely on.
More necessary.
It was unnecessary.
Unnecessary, yeah.
And so therefore, I move that we adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your
Sorry to
service.
see the horses go. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, that's like the best part of driving down Chin Chapel is seeing those buggers out there.
Well, we appreciate everybody.
I
want
see
feedback?
a
You
bug
want
behind my house.
This is
Dude,
very
right in the
cool.
train.